Pennsylvania has a rich history of cryptids and legends that have been documented for years. The reason we know about them is because Pennsylvania has some of the best cryptid researchers. They've accumulated and organized a lot, and it gives us a chance to research the research. Hi, my name is Jenna Bosiger. Thank you for watching my Cryptid Cryptids YouTube channel. Be sure you're subscribed, hit the like, and let's get started with the Pennsylvania cryptids. Longtime UFO cryptid researcher Stan Gordon has a unique point of view. He's been reporting and investigating UFOs and cryptids, including as lead investigator for the legendary Kecksburg UFO crash, and early in his research, traveling the state of Pennsylvania to interview eyewitnesses, he found repeating patterns connecting UFO and cryptid sightings that are both reported in the same locations, often at the same time. And as strange as the UFO and cryptid sightings sound, he was finding similarities in the reports, and a lot of them were based in location and having multiple different types of paranormal activity going on in the same location for years. So what do these places have in common? And if you want to learn more about Stan Gordon's ongoing research, you can find out at stangordon.info. Lon Strickler of Phantoms and Monsters also has a unique perspective to his cryptid research. It started years ago with his own cryptid sighting. And so he's able to go deeper with the questions to try to find out more about them. And after years of researching cryptids and interviewing eyewitnesses, he's able to notice patterns and similarities and make these connections. And you can find him at phantomsandmonsters.com or here at his Phantoms and Monsters YouTube channel. In my state-to-state research of cryptids and giants, the first thing I do is start looking up locations and plotting them on Google Earth to look for patterns and concentrated areas of sightings. And this takes a lot of work and time. But thanks to more great research coming from the state of Pennsylvania, I didn't have to do that because I could go directly to pabigfoot.com/Pennsylvania Interactive Map. And there you can find the most amazing interactive cryptid map of sightings. And not only can you zoom in and out, but with the click of a button, you can find out the locations of the cryptid reports and get the info about the sightings. And it's also tricolor coded by the dates of the sightings. This is everything I could want in an interactive cryptid map. And every state needs one of these. And as far as I know, this is the best and only one. And it would be amazing to have all that research organized in state by state, one location, and following the same format as this map. It saves an incredible amount of time, and there's so much research that can be done using this map. Over the years, researchers from Pennsylvania have been reporting on multiple cases of similar cryptids, including UFOs, both big and small, a smaller species of Bigfoot, gargoyle-type flying creatures, black panthers, and a dog or wolf-headed species able to stand 7 feet tall. I don't think it's likely that people are using their imaginations to make these things up out of the blue. More likely, they're using their imaginations to embellish the stories. My research into the state of Pennsylvania quickly took me down an unexpected trail right from the beginning with the very first cryptid I learned about called the squonk. So as soon as I saw images of the squonk, I was reminded of tardigrades or water bears. And so I looked up images of tardigrades to compare and also learned that they both have an unusual connection with water, with reports of the squonk that say after being captured, they would dissolve into water, and tardigrades live in water. So the very next thing I learned about the squonk is that it lived in the hemlock forests of northern Pennsylvania. I had never heard the word hemlock before, but the second I heard hemlock forest in northern Pennsylvania, it sparked my imagination and curiosity, and I had to see pictures of this mysterious hemlock forest. And that's when I learned from PennLive.com that it's part of Pennsylvania's old-growth virgin forest with some trees older than 225 years. That all sounds amazing, but it does raise some follow-up questions, like why are the oldest trees around the same age of around 225 years? What was there before that? What happened 225 years ago? And I found the answer is us. So from pghcitypaper.com, in an article titled, "A Century Ago, Pennsylvania Stood Almost Entirely Stripped of Trees," where it goes on to say that in 1895, state records say before the arrival of the Europeans, Pennsylvania had 28.7 million acres that was almost completely covered with a variety of trees in a primordial tree-covered forest filled with a variety of wildlife. But in 1895, after cutting down all the trees, it says there was a remaining few hundred acres of true old growth that remained, because most of what was left was less than real forest and more like underbrush prone to soil erosion and wildfires. And as described in 1895 History of the State Department of Forestry, quote, "Ours is a landscape of stumps and ashes." Mostly to blame, unchecked logging for several decades. But the same Department of Forestry still manages the forest today and oversees gas drilling, waste disposal, gas and industry drill cuttings, which contain heavy metals and toxic chemicals and radiation, and areas now designated to cows, the non-native species cows. And during this time of rapid deforestation, besides destroying all the habitat for wildlife, we also hunted and trapped all the native predators to extinction. We also hunted all the smaller animals for their fur. When the forest started growing back, they must have seemed hauntingly empty of wildlife. Currently, some wildlife is returning, but not all. Any intelligent cryptid species would have learned during this time that going into hiding from humans was the only chance for survival. So making use of underground caves, caverns, and tunnel systems, leaving the state, or being cornered into the areas of old growth. Let's face it, we aren't ready to make contact with another intelligent cryptid predator species, because as a culture, we aren't ready to share the land with them, or let any of the top predators live in peace, even if they were there for thousands of years before the arrival of humans. People think they're so smart and that nothing could escape their detection and remain hidden from us. But who among us can smell a drop of blood a mile away? Our human senses are so weak and dull and not fit for survival or predation in comparison with the wildlife we know about. We don't even have the ability to sense any of the strongest forces in the universe, like magnetism or gravity and electromagnetism, and it's possible that some of these forces are responsible for creating paranormal hotspots, places with electrical fields, zones, portals, and triangles on Earth. There are patterns in the research repeated throughout history with all the witnesses today. These areas have concentrated, unexplained cryptid and UFO activity. I can attest to UFO activity in the same location that was happening in my Bigfoot cryptid hotspots. The other thing these places have in common is that they're near wilderness areas, also water sources. From KeystoneNewsroom.com, in an article titled Legendary Creatures Believed to Live in Pennsylvania, it says that Lancaster County has reports of a smaller Bigfoot-like creature like the Albawitch of Clarion County. In his book Ghosts of the River Towns, paranormal author and researcher Rick Fisher chronicles many paranormal incidents at Chickies Rock. And in 2002, he was driving near Chickies Rock when he had a strange encounter. In the distance, he saw what appeared to be a person walking in the middle of the road, and as he got closer, he slowed down because the person seemed small enough to be a child. And as he got closer, he saw a thin stick figure about 5 feet tall, covered with hair, standing in the road. From UnchartedLancaster.com, when Fisher flipped his high beams on to get a better look, the hairy figure turned and he could see 2 yellow eyes staring back at him. Then the figure vanished right there in the middle of the road. Fisher later learned that he saw an Albawitch, and he was not the only one. The Albawitch is reported to be a 4-foot-tall, hairy ape man seen around Chickies Rock area of the Susquehanna River. Not to be mistaken for a juvenile Bigfoot, the Albawitch has more of a neck and has a skinnier, more human-like proportions, and he's known to steal apples, hang out in trees, and throw fruit at people if they get too close. Native local American groups both have stories involving the creature. The Susquehannocks reportedly painted images that match the description of these creatures on their war shields. The Algonquin told tales of small, hairy hominid creatures called megamuizus. Notice how they clearly differentiate between the Susquehannocks and the Algonquins. And more on that later in my following episode, where I studied the Susquehannocks in great detail. The name Albawitch is believed to have German origins, translating to apple elf, elf spirit, or gliding, escaping elf spirit. And it's interesting to note that Bigfoot eyewitnesses often report seeing Bigfoots glide when they walk with no head bobbing. And in Chester Swamps in Delaware County, that was the location of sightings reported of an ape boy, a large ape body covered in red hair, said to once inhabit the swamps of Delaware County. But the reports have since stopped since we drained the swamps, destroying even more of their habitat. And over the years, the habitat has been developed. So now the only possible remaining territory for the ape boy would be the tiny forest island of John Hines National Wildlife Refuge. I don't know if other wildlife can survive in this area, but in theory, if other wildlife can survive in a location, then so could the ape boy species. And these creatures were reported at Chickies Rock back in the 1800s. A species of mountain lion known as the eastern cougar once inhabited Pennsylvania centuries ago, but it was hunted to extinction. As recent sightings of large black cougars pop up, some are led to speculate that mountain lions may be making their way back into the state. The question is, are the humans in Pennsylvania going to share the land or only allow a forest of birds, bees, and cows? Gray wolves were once prevalent throughout the U.S., including in Pennsylvania's, but they were locally extirpated by the early 1900s due to habit destruction and hunting, and they are still not present on the East Coast. The werewolf of Montgomery County is a dogman creature seen in several regions. They look like a tall canine walking on 2 legs. One of the sightings occurred in 1990, and since then the creature is well known by the locals. The creature is able to walk on 4 legs or 2, and from Ghosts of the Pennsylvania Wilds, Werewolves in Cook Forest, it says in the 1940s there were sightings of an odd monster in the Cook Forest and in the ancient landscape of the Pennsylvania Wilds. The witnesses who described it saw it as hairy, very quick, disappearing into the trees after one quick glimpse. And since nobody could ever get much of a sighting, let alone an explanation, the creature became known as the Clarion. What is it? Nobody ever figured out what it is, and the creature doesn't seem to be sighted anymore. But one explanation is that it might be a werewolf. And according to old legends, it's possible. Legend compiled by Henry Wharton Shoemaker, a Clinton County folklorist who wrote down a lot of old stories like this. And then I learned about the folklore surrounding the werewolf of Northumberland. And it's the strangest coincidence that just 2 weeks prior, I was looking up Northumberland in the UK on Google Maps. And I had never heard of Northumberland before, except when I was looking for the location for the filming of the werewolf series Wolf Blood, because I wanted to know more about where these werewolf legends were coming from. So I looked it up to look at the forest there, and I learned more about Northumberland. Like, they hunted all the wolves to extinction, and their forests, well, it looks like Northumberland has been devastated by deforestation and hunting the wildlife to extinction. And the isolated forests there today don't provide much habitat for any kind of werewolves living today. On the farm, not far from Snyderstown in Northumberland County, there lived an old hermit. The man had a local reputation of being a werewolf or wolfman, and in the 1850s, the daughter May befriended the old hermit, who would often sit on a log as she would tend the sheep. So one night, a farmer heard some commotion in his barn. Fearing a wolf attack, he grabbed his rifle and hurried outside. A wolf raced past so close he was able to shoot it cleanly. The great beast lopped off into the night, but left a trail of blood behind. Wanting to finish the job, the farmer followed a trail the short distance before deciding against chasing the wounded animal in the dark. The wolf was injured and couldn't roam far. Confident he could bag the animal in the morning, he returned to his house, picking up the trail again after daybreak, and he followed the blood to the cabin of the old hermit. Venturing cautiously inside when he received no answer to his shouts, he found the old man dead in a pool of blood with a gunshot wound to his chest. Another creature reported by the lumberjacks in the 1800s is the whirling whimpus, said to be a bloodthirsty 7-foot-tall gorilla-like animal that has the ability to fool any animal or person. And it's reported that when it senses prey coming down a pathway, it hides, and then as the victim comes near, the whirling whimpus begins to spin around on one foot or hoof, quickly rendering itself practically invisible. And as it does this, the wind emits a low, droning sound that seems to be coming from the trees above. And as the prey looks up, trying to locate the sound, the whimpus attacks and kills their victim, turning them into a substance similar to molasses or maple syrup. So this creature is able to vibrate at a higher frequency, making them appear like an invisible blur. Which raises the question, are cryptids paranormal? I think that all science can seem like magic to someone who doesn't have the knowledge to understand it. When we think of a wolf's ability to smell a drop of blood a mile away, and they may possess other heightened senses, we're constantly underestimating the ability of animals and their potential. And if there are other intelligent species of wildlife, native creatures to the land with abilities to survive that far surpass our own, including a sixth sense. I think there are logical explanations, but they don't fit into our current mold of reality. It's the most intelligent people who admit to how much we don't know or understand. And that includes explanations for portals, hauntings, and cryptids. Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode about Pennsylvania cryptids. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, because next time I'm going to be sharing the research I did about the Susquehannocks. I've come to a very different conclusion than mainstream about the true identity of the Susquehannocks. So until next time, bye!